First-year teacher Rachel Downs from Free State High School reflects on what it means to be a modern educator. Although she is new to the profession, she spoke about the importance of getting involved on IEP teams, utilizing your paras, and working on professional development.
I think of myself as sort of a bridge between what they know and what they could know, or what they have as foundational skills and what I could teach them in order to create or build on those skills. I keep current as far as helping students with disabilities by going to workshops at regional and annual conventions that are tied to the National Art Education Association. They often have options for students with disabilities or how to work with students with disabilities. I also work very closely with my paras. I think the paras are somewhat overlooked in the school system, and they have a lot of insight in terms of how to work with and how to be successful working with students with disabilities. So I communicate with them very closely so that I can be sure I am serving the student as best as I can.
As we begin our journey into becoming modern educators ourselves, the advice and stories that were shared with me made me hopeful that at least with these teachers and parents, modification and communication is happening in the K-12 classroom. Wichita Public Elementary art teacher Marcia Scurfield shares some insight into some of her classroom experiences with students who have disabilities.
And my story is that when I taught in Florida, I was art on a cart, and I shared a trailer with the learning disabilities teacher. So I would come in there to her little sessions with her kids, and was fascinated that the kids that were in this learning disabled class were the ones I considered to be my gifted artists.
Denise Panzer, a K-12 art teacher from Jetmore, Kansas, shares some failures she has had with students in her classroom.
I had probably lots of little failures as far as not recognizing enough what other students with disabilities limitations were. Maybe my expectations were a little too high, and I didn't take into consideration their strengths and their weaknesses, and that caused them to be frustrated, which in turn probably caused me to be frustrated.
Art educator Shawnee Montgomery shares another point about ability.
I think I modify it for every student. I do different, it just depends on what their ability is.
Panzer also discusses some advantages an art education can offer students with disabilities as reflected in her own classroom.
Absolutely gives them a way to communicate. Some of them come to you with limited vocabulary or limited fine motor skills, and so they can't be precise like the other kids are. And I think letting them know that this is a way of communicating your feelings, how they're feeling today, how they felt yesterday, how they feel about a certain subject, I think that's really good for them.
Down gives us a specific example of how one of her students with disabilities communicated in art.
Project with our feet. It's a personal narrative assignment, and you think about where your feet have taken you, and what your feet, if you're strong, if you're sturdy, if your feet are afloat. This is Kristen Nash's. This is the girl I talked about was born very premature with her twin sister, and they're both very much physically disabled. And this is her piece, and she feels really tied down by the fact that she can't walk very well. She feels really tied down.
Downs shares this was a difficult thing for the student to do, but afterwards she felt empowered telling her message.
And she really believes this is what her feet look like. And
Panzer offers a bit of advice for first-year teachers.
I maintain very high expectations of all of my students, even my special ed students, because I feel like if I'm not expecting more of them than they're already doing, I'm doing them a disservice.
Panzer deeply understands the relationship between ability and expectations, from not only being an educator, but from being a parent to a student with disabilities as well.
I'm lucky enough to have a child who does not let, I'm gonna cry, who does not let her limitations get the best of her. She's very good at problem solving. She will find a way to make it work for her.
Shelley and Todd Pennington, parents of 2 students with disabilities, describe the differences with their IEP team.
We have the experience right now that we feel like our one son is very much so supportive. The other son, no. On one hand, the one that is very supportive has taught both boys, and we can pick up and call them in a heartbeat. The other one she's there for a paycheck. And that is the most saddest thing you can ever say.
In contrast, Panzer talks about the support her child gets at school. The stark difference between these two families that both need help illuminated for me some of the failures in our education system that are being overlooked from district to district.
The school that Courtney is in is very supportive of her. Um, she has a great class. The kids that she goes to school with are great. Her teachers are great. Her support staff is great. Everybody wants her to be, just like the other kids.
Shelley and Todd spoke very in depth about how they wish their IEP team would do a better job communicating. As we are entering the workforce as first-year teachers, I think this is important to keep in mind that parents want clear communication with their IEP team so that everybody can get on the same page to help the student.
That we are involved is during basically an IEP. Though with our youngest son, we can call the school in the drop of a hat and get action. With the oldest, they don't want us there. They don't.
We even asked that question too, of what we could do to help at home, and we got no response about that.
What I wish that they would do is bring us in more and show progress at the beginning, or start a baseline at the beginning of the year, and then pull us in at the end of the year and say, look at the progress that we've made. But I feel like those progress reports are a piece of paper. You come, you read it, and you throw it aside. It's not a verbal one-on-one.
As we venture out into our first teaching jobs, I believe we must carry these stories and images with us so that we can help the families like the ones we've seen here, so that we can engage and inspire students like the teachers we've seen here, so that we all become the best modern educators.